What I want to ask you is if there is someone who is just graduating from law school, passing the bar, and they're interested in getting a job in personal injury, what is your advice?
First and foremost, really find like a really good mentor, somebody you really want to sit and learn from, because there are a lot of different ways of approaching personal injury. If I were to do it again and I were to know I was going to land here, I would have made that my focus. Amazingly enough, there are a lot of attorneys out there that are fantastic trial attorneys, that are very willing to teach younger attorneys.
Hey there, hot messes. Welcome to Success of a Hot Mess, where we celebrate the art of juggling life's chaos and coming out on top. I'm Stacey Isaacs, your host and resident rock star lawyer, dance mom, and survivor. We're going to dive into candid conversations about conquering challenges, embracing our unique selves, and finding success in the beautiful mess of it all.
Good afternoon. Today on Success of a Hot Mess podcast, I have the pleasure of having Hilda Millan coming on with me today. Hilda is a personal injury / wrongful death attorney in the Tampa area. Thank you, Hilda, for coming on.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Very excited.
So I came across your profile on social media. I really like what you're doing with social media. Is that something you are personally doing, or is somebody at your firm handling that?
So it's something I'm personally doing. I'm at a firm where thankfully they kind of give me that freedom to try to bridge the gap as best as possible with my community, let them know that I'm in their community and I'm available to help them. So I went the social media route, and I think it's been working out really well.
Yeah, I love what you're doing. Why don't you tell us the firm that you're currently with?
Yeah, so I'm currently with the law offices of Ryan Hughes. Our logo is actually Call Ryan. So we're on a couple of buses a little further down in the Pinellas area. I think we'll start being on a couple of buses actually in the Hillsborough County area. But yeah, it's a medium-sized firm, got a couple of attorneys. We're based in downtown Tampa.
Awesome. And what does the firm do? Is it primarily personal injury?
Yeah, so it's primarily personal injury, focused more on motor vehicle accidents. We've moved our way into a couple wrongful death cases as well. So that will start being probably the two areas that we most largely touch.
Okay. I know you guys specialize, so to speak, in motor vehicle accidents, but do you take on any other types of accidents, like a pedestrian or?
So we do.
Dog bite?
Yeah, dog bites are a little harder. We definitely have taken them on. Pedestrians, we do as well. Sometimes some of the issue that you run into pedestrian is they're hit and runs, right? And it's really hard to find a vehicle that got away from you. But we don't shy away from any sort of personal injury cases. We even do civil assault and battery. So yeah, any type of personal injury, if we feel that we can handle your case and represent you to the fullest, we will definitely take you on.
Awesome. It's certainly easy enough to remember Call Ryan.
Yes.
So I like that. Very catchy. Is this statewide or just Hillsborough County?
Yeah, so we serve the greater Tampa Bay area. I would say about 70% of our cases are in that greater Tampa Bay. So Hillsborough County, and then a little further up into like the St. Pete, Clearwater, Palm Harbor area. But then the rest of our cases are actually statewide. So we get cases even as far down as Miami. So yeah, we cover the state.
Okay. Do you speak Spanish by chance?
I do. So it's my first language. I'm from El Paso, Texas. So I am Mexican, border town.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's been nice. I'm the only attorney at the firm currently right now that speaks Spanish. And so it's given us the ability to serve a different community as well.
That is excellent. That's excellent. Every firm needs somebody who speaks Spanish.
Yeah, we're actually trying to broaden our area and see if we can get, attorneys that speak all kinds of different languages, because there's a lot of different communities out here.
Yes, especially, I'm in the Miami, Fort Lauderdale area, so we have a huge Hispanic clientele. We do not do personal injury. We just do work accidents, hence the name Work Injury Rights of the firm.
Yeah.
But I'm always interested in speaking to female attorneys. What made you decide to even get into this area of the law?
So I love this question because a lot of people are like, how did you fall into this? I didn't know when I got out of law school, like, oh, I have this love for personal injury. I will say, growing up in Texas, personal injury isn't as advertised, or I guess the same way it is in Florida. A lot of the people I went to law school with, they're like, oh, I'm going to run into personal injury. I'm like, why is everybody obsessed with personal injury? What's going on? So Florida's a little different in that respect. But when I got out of law school and got my license, I went into roofing claims. And so that was I've always only done plaintiff work. So I went into roofing claims, my first interaction with insurance companies. And then I moved over into windshield replacement calibrations, like AOBs. And I think over time was not a big fan of the way insurance companies approach some cases. And I didn't like the way they handled companies, right? Because I represented companies at the time. And then I moved over into personal injury. And then I really felt this like drive. And I was like, oh no, some of these people really need a lot of help. And they really need somebody to advocate for them. And so that level of advocacy, I think, has really driven me to stay in this area of law.
That is interesting. The same sort of thing happened to me. I was doing insurance defense, but for workers' comp. So I've never strayed from workers' comp, but being on the insurance side, it's really taxing when you see their tactics, and it was a little sad at times. But also Texas is interesting because Texas is notorious for having had, I think, the worst workers' comp system in the United States. So can you shed some light as to why it seems like nobody carries good auto insurance in Florida?
I think there's a lot of variables to it. The insurance rates definitely are a massive driving force. I know there's, the saying out there, the litigation is what's driving the insurance rates up. And it really isn't. There's a lot of other components of it as well. But I think my personal opinion is I don't like the minimum standard that is required in Florida. A lot of people, and I get this all the time, I consult somebody new and they say, well, they have insurance because they got a driver's exchange with insurance information. And then they'll tell me, well, I talked to that person and they told me that they're insured, but they don't realize that to be fully insured in Florida is actually like the bare minimum. You just need 10,000 in personal injury protection, right? PIP, and then 10,000 in property damage. So people are actually driving around fully insured, but they don't have any bodily injury for you. And it is devastating for a lot of people to hear. So I've tried to focus a little bit more of my social media and the information I put out to really inform people that full insurance in Florida isn't really full insurance. And you really should get like that underinsured, uninsured motorist coverage.
And that will cover your bodily injury if the at-fault driver had none?
Correct. Yeah. So that's what Florida offers as an offset, uninsured and underinsured motorist coverage. And had somebody asked me a super great question. They were like, hey, I have health insurance. Why do I need uninsured, underinsured motorist coverage? And I was like, well, it covers you for lost wages. You can be compensated for pain and suffering. Your health insurance isn't going to do any of that, no copays, little things like that. But yeah, kind of circling it back, I wish the requirement in Florida was different. And I actually think it's being currently entertained in the House. So I think a bill was proposed recently to see if we could get at least $25,000 in BI. So who knows if that law will pass.
Oh, well, that's, my fingers are crossed. I am literally in the process of trying to insure my 16-year-old driver. And it's insanity. It is more than the car payment itself. And incidentally, she's got a Tesla, and for some reason it costs more to insure Teslas, which that part I don't understand because they're virtually unstealable. I mean, there's cameras all around the car. So that was something new that I learned. Would you have any idea why?
Yeah, I don't really, unfortunately, we're not privy to, business decisions that the insurance company make. But I agree. I think that's really weird because Teslas also have so many safety portions of the vehicle that would make it easier for the driver to be a safe driver. So yeah, a lot of moving parts, and it's different from insurance company to insurance company.
That's true. Maybe they just don't like Elon Musk. I don't know.
Who knows?
Right. One topic that I think is probably a hot topic in your industry would be texting and driving, which I literally, like, you can look at any car. It's one thing if they're at a stoplight, but you can be on the highway and see somebody staring down on their phone. It's really scary. So can you tell the listeners, number one, how does an insurance company know if you were in fact texting while driving? And two, how would that impact, let's say you are the at-fault driver because you were texting?
Yeah, so texting and driving actually is a subpart of a larger umbrella of distracted driving. And so, we focus on texting and driving, but really what the insurance companies and an attorney like myself would like to know about the at-fault drivers. Were they distracted in any way, right? Dealing with children, a passenger, listening to an audible, navigation and stuff like that. But so I think you brought up a great point, because I've also received this question, which is, I'll ask him, hey, were you texting and driving? And well, how are they going to find out? And that's kind of my favorite question. I take the time to really inform my clients about how much the insurance company will find out. Pre-suit, probably they won't get phone records. But if we go into litigation, those phone records are up for grabs, and you do have to comply. If it's part of the request for production, give me your cell phone, give me the company that you're with and who's the owner of that bill, right? And we've got to turn that stuff over. So that's one way that they're going to find out. Another way that they find out is dash cams, got a dash cam, or other people. I've had clients send me pictures, and they have pictures of an at-fault driver reaching into their vehicle, trying to turn off something, a computer. So I know, yeah. And then, how do you explain that one? So eventually it does come out. A lot of things come out that people think wouldn't. And it does. And, it'll come out. It's unavoidable.
Okay. So let me ask you this, because I am famous for this. I'll do the dictation text messages, like just through the car, right? So I don't know how distracted that would make me, but can they differentiate from a phone record whether you're physically texting or you're speaking?
If you're dictating it, if you actually check to see on your phone, whenever you dictate something, the person receiving, and I think sometimes if don't quote me on this one, I'm almost positive because I do the same thing too, it'll say talk to text or sent by Siri. And so the phone now actually indicates whether or not you dictated it or you manually press these buttons in. Yeah. So it'll give an alert and it'll say what it was.
Yes. Big Brother's watching. That is for sure. But
you can't get away from anything.
I don't even know. Do they give tickets? I mean, can you get a citation if an officer sees you texting?
100%. And if you do get a ticket for this, let's say you're not at fault and you asked, the second component question of that, which was how does it affect you in an accident? Let's say you're not at fault for the accident, but the cop, prior to the accident, maybe it was next to you, saw that you were on your phone, you were driving and texting. So he gives you a ticket, but he doesn't find you at fault for the accident. How does that affect me? Goes a little bit towards your liability, or it can go a little bit towards the liability in the accident, depending on how the accident occurred. This is important because now we know in Florida, if you're found more than 50% at fault for your accident, you're going to recover a goose egg, right? So being a non-distracted driver definitely is your goal in any.
I better stop doing my makeup in the car.
That was just about to say, it's funny because I give recorded, or I have clients who give recorded statements to their insurance companies. Sometimes I will permit them to give recorded statements to the tortfeasor's insurance company. Number one question they'll ask, are you using your phone in any way? And the first thought that comes to mind is, I wasn't texting and driving, but they're not, they're asking, are you using the navigation? Did you have passengers? Did you have children in the car? I actually had somebody admit that they were fussing with their children in the back seat, and they didn't see the person that was coming, so they caused an accident and stuff. But yeah, just distracted driving in general.
Do you think that this inhibits texting and driving? Because I see it literally everywhere. I see the police texting.
Man, I know. So I had a sovereign case, and it was a police officer who admitted he rear-ended my client. And he admitted he rear-ended my client because they were at a red light, and for a half second, he just went to go do something on his computer, wasn't paying attention, and he rear-ended my client. So he did admit to it. Do I think it stops people from doing it? No, I don't think it does. And it's a little bit sad because a lot of people say, and the studies show, that distracted driving is akin to impaired driving, right? So when you think about drunk drivers, you're like, oh my God, that's terrible, But, they're the same type of distraction. It could cause the same level of injury, same level of catastrophic accident.
Yeah, and they often look drunk, by the way. They're like drifting, and
yeah, you can see it, right? You can kind of do this.
Yeah, and then I've seen some people, it's usually older people, they're actually still holding their phones. They don't use Bluetooth, and they're driving slower simply because they're talking on the phone. Phones are probably just a bad idea, and you're a lot younger than me, I would bet. And we didn't have cell phones when we started driving, which I was telling my daughter, I said, if we needed to know where we were going, you had to print out directions.
Print out MapQuest.
Yes,
where you were going.
Exactly.
I had my parents be like, go print me the directions.
Yeah. And I said to my dad, I said, weren't you scared letting me drive at night? I had no phone. What if I ran out of gas or the car broke down? It was just different times. But I wonder if there are more accidents these days because of the phones.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there are. I don't know the statistics myself, but I know that the severity of the accidents that come from people that were on the phone or not paying attention, I mean, they're severe accidents of people whose lives are changed because somebody was texting and driving.
Yeah, you're making me really want to just throw my phone in the back seat, not look at it.
And just ignore it. Yeah, completely.
Yes, yeah. And I'm going to have my new driver daughter listen to this podcast.
Yeah.
What I want to ask you is, if there is someone who is just graduating from law school, passing the bar, and they're interested in getting a job in personal injury, what is your advice? How would they go about getting a job in this area? Because it seems like it's a pretty saturated area.
It definitely is. I think you have to, first and foremost, really find like a really good mentor, somebody you really want to sit and learn from, because there are a lot of different ways of approaching personal injury. And so people always, have ideas about how to handle a case or move something forward. And so in law school, I think if I were to do it again and I were to know I was going to land here, I would have made that my focus, touch base and see like, who do I really want to learn from, who are, the big time trial attorneys in personal injury that are out there that are willing to kind of take on a law student that they can teach. And so not surprisingly, but amazingly enough, there are a lot of attorneys out there that are fantastic trial attorneys that are very willing to teach younger attorneys. And so I think taking advantage of something like that would go a long way.
Yeah, I think finding a mentor is absolutely critical. You might find that you don't like the area that you thought you wanted to practice in also.
Yeah, 100%. That's the only thing I kind of would have done different. But, I have some people ask, I want to do insurance defense first for a little bit to kind of get like an insider's perspective and then move out. I think that's a good approach too. In criminal, people do that. They go work for the state attorneys and then they go into private practice. And so I don't think there's a wrong or right way in that. I didn't do it. I just went straight to plaintiff work. And sometimes I'm a little bit jealous of people who did it. I'm like, oh, you got to work on the inside for a little bit, but there's really no right or wrong in that respect, kind of what you're comfortable with.
And do you like to try cases, or do you like to settle, or is it just dependent on the facts?
Yeah, so definitely dependent on the facts, especially now more than ever, with the way the rules changed for Florida civil procedure. Definitely not filing on everything. You don't want to, push everything into litigation unless absolutely necessary. So focused half and half. Definitely, if we can get it done in pre-suit, and plus it makes the clients happier when it's finished in pre-suit. So if you can get it done in pre-suit, get it done in pre-suit. But set up the pre-suit process ready to go for trial if we have to. And so that's definitely something that we don't shy away from. I don't shy away from. We got to take it to trial. We're going to trial. So, and that's also something I didn't think I would land into, but I did. And I really, really like it. Yeah.
That's great to have those skills.
Yeah.
I feel like if you can try a case, in civil court, you could always do criminal, like it's just a skill that you need. And I always, me personally, I preferred the whole mediation process. Like I like to negotiate, but my partners, they love to try cases. So it's good to have a firm with people who, are good at different things.
Yeah, it is. And it's actually extremely helpful too, because then, at least with our firm, I'm not the only eyes that are falling on my case. I come into the partner's office, Ryan Hughes's office. Hey, what do you think about this? I'm looking at, and so you're kind of collaborating, and people's strengths and weaknesses come together, and then you get to kind of have a different perspective on it. So that's always super helpful. But yeah, I guess if you're a young attorney trying to go into PI and you want to do trial practice, get into a courtroom. Look at dockets, check to see what trials are up, and then, get your eyes on some trials and just watch. Yeah.
Have you ever encountered a sort of bias? Like when I was a young attorney and I would walk into a deposition, I was asked if I was the interpreter, the court reporter, and I got a bit of a chip on my shoulder about it. Have you ever experienced anything like that?
Oh, it just happened to me. So I went into a deposition, and the defendant, actually, I sat down. He goes, "Who are you?" I go, "Well, I'm the attorney." He goes, "The attorney for who?" And I go, "Well, the attorney for the plaintiff." And he goes, "You're too young to be an attorney." And I was like, "Okay." And he goes, "They make attorneys that young?" And and I think he was kind of trying to smooth it. And I was just like, "Oh yeah." And so, you get it, and happens, I think, way more often than I wish it did, but it happened as soon as I got my license, and then it kind of hasn't stopped. So I expected a little bit.
What I can tell you is I wish it would happen now. It never happens anymore, but back then it used to drive me crazy, so much so that at the time I was doing defense, and I said, that's it. I'm not coming in there with a whole, printout of questions. I'm committing these to memory because I just wanted to be taken more seriously. And I think, as women, like we struggle enough with that, but then for someone to assume I was the court reporter, not that there's anything wrong with being a court reporter, but, after all the school and the bar and you get the license, it would just be nice if people could just assume.
Yeah, 100%. It unfortunately, I think, even happens amongst other attorneys. If I go to networking events or, amongst attorneys, and I'll go with my male colleagues, they'll come up to my male colleague and, "Hi, how are you? My name is so-and-so, and I work with this firm," and they'll, kind of do this, and I'm, on the back end, and they'll be like, "Oh, well, Hilda's an attorney too." And they'll be like, "Oh, I had no idea. I'm sorry. I thought you were, just his like +1 or something." And yeah, it just kind of happens. I've decided, I think I'm at a point now where I just kind of brush it off as kind of the way I've approached it. But yes, I think there's different approaches to it, and it should just expect it and then just kind of figure out a way to absorb and how you'll move forward with it. But yeah.
What do you do when you are not practicing law, Hilda?
So I'm a big avid reader. I'm actually like completely lost right now in the Fourth Wing series. So I love to read on my off time on top of all the reading I already do for work. But outside of that, head down to the beach and I play a little bit of beach volleyball. So it's kind of keep active and stuff like that. Yeah.
That's right. You're close to the beach there. That's nice.
It is. It's really nice. And we got a couple beaches too, like a whole strip of them. So you can different type of sand and different type of areas. And so it's really nice. But I have kind of found so many hours sitting in the office chair that if I can take a moment to kind of get outside and do something active, it helps, keeps me sane. It makes me feel good and makes me
Definitely.
a better.
You know, what we do is we argue for a living. So, you know, I tell my family, I don't want to argue when I get home.
Yeah.
I've been doing it all day with insurance companies, clients. Sometimes I just want to, you know, veg.
Decompress.
Yes.
Yeah, a way to decompress.
And do you literally read books or do you listen on Audible?
I literally read books. I'm definitely I'm an old school girl. Actually, you can probably see in the back of my whole row of books up there.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely. I'm an old school. My dad's a big reader. I grew up reading. My dad's an attorney as well, actually. So I grew up around it.
What kind of law does he do?
So he does, he's board certified in immigration out in Texas, and he does federal criminal defense as well. So he's a lot of the big reason why I became an attorney.
That's actually like, to me, that's a fascinating area, federal criminal.
Yeah, so I really liked the federal criminal. The immigration's a little bit too close to home for me, so I didn't dive into it, but I did like the federal criminal stuff a lot.
Very cool. Well, I want to thank you for coming on Success of a Hot Mess today. I appreciate your time. If you want to give a little plug to your firm and your own personal social media account, well, your professional social media account for the listeners if they want to find you.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can look us up. It's Call Ryan. We're located at the Bank of America building in downtown Tampa. And then alternatively, my Instagram page is Attorney Hilda. Any questions you may have, please feel free. You can send me a message or you can reach out to our law firm, and we're very accessible. We'll call you right back and consult you and take care of your needs.
Thank you so much. This episode of Success of a Hot Mess brought to you by workinjuryrights.com. We practice statewide for all of your work injuries. Thanks again, Hilda. Have a great day.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Success of a Hot Mess. If you loved what you heard today, be sure to subscribe so you never miss a beat. And hey, sharing is caring. Share this podcast with your friends, family, and anyone who could use a dose of inspiration. Until next time, keep rocking those hot mess moments with style and grace. Cheers.